Yeah, 5 different ones.
I didn't realize that you had that many.
Yeah, well, it's my Facebook, church's Facebook, Saturday night's Facebook, and then
YouTube.
we have YouTube churches and Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
So that's 5. But I didn't hear this thing cling, but we're there. Sorry, everybody, on the Saturday Night Live, we just had another our regular Saturday night technical issue, but we're good now, so welcome to you and to all of you, so.
We're technically challenged.
Excuse me?
We're technically challenged.
You're technically challenged?
Yeah.
We're all fellow strugglers in technology and other things, right?
Right.
So, hey, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad I'm here. I braved the weather, and so this is Saturday Night Live Life Recovery. And what that means is we're all working on trying to recover from life's messes. Right, Tommy?
That's true.
You seems like the longer I talk, the more you sink down there. So anyway, we're here to not only help each other, but also help you out there in TV land, video land, because it is impossible to do it on your own. I was visiting with, texting back and forth from someone, and they was talking about that they're thinking about wanting to get into a live meeting, and they watch Saturday Night Live on video they've been here in years gone by, but they've been watching it, and it says it's not like being here, which is true. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
But if you can't be here, that's the next best thing, right? And that's the reason why we do this. That's the reason why we do this together. It's the reason why we come, is try to help everybody that's interested in help. And also, that's the reason why the church pays for this and gives us this room and gives us these lights and gives us this heat and even repairs the roof when it's leaking, which at least that's what they were supposed to have done last week. So, and I'm sure they made an attempt at it. I didn't see any leaks back here, so evidently they got it. So thank you to everybody involved. And for those here lately, been leaving some donation in the bag. I turn that in, and that just helps cover those things I just mentioned. So thank you. Tonight we're going to be talking about restoration. Restoration is important, and this is out of Luke 15:11 through 23. We doing good over there, Willie? Yeah. All right. And so the question is, what is restoration?
To be restored.
Yeah, Robert.
Coming back to former glory.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Chris, you said something?
I forgot what I said. Restored.
You said
I know what the word is. I said,
Did you?
oh, I forgot what I said. What
Okay.
Oh,
All right. And you'll remember that you're reading the step, right? Next week. So, just harassing you. Restoration, according to the dictionary that I looked up, online dictionary, it says the action of returning something to a former owner, like restoring it, or place, putting it back, or condition. Okay, so and what we're going to be talking about is for us to be restored, and particularly the condition part, that we are put back into that former condition. Not the condition that we were, but the condition before we were the word, right? And that's what we're going to be talking about. That because we oftentimes think since we have maybe we recognize that we have issues, which we all have issues, whether you recognize them or not. Hello. Yes. And but sometimes we judge ourselves very harshly. Yes, maybe people judge us harshly, but let me say this: those that were restored, particularly the patterns given out of the Bible, were able to take people that messed up and were restored and were better and did better than they probably even possible if they hadn't gone through the arc of their life and come to the place of having that restoration in their life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? And so it could very well be that your restoration means you can be and probably are better than you were previously. How about that terminology? Does that make sense? And so my question is, what is our biggest stumbling block, or what is it that holds us back from really being able to accept that restoration in our life? Anybody want to say?
Fear.
Fear,
Not feeling worthy.
not feeling worthy, two good ones. What else?
Ego.
Ego, that's a good one. Chris, you said something?
Sound mind.
Sound mind. Okay, well, yes, because oftentimes we, I was going to say this later, but I'll say it now since you led me into it, is we get into a place that we think we're doing good, but we're not really doing good, but really we know we're not doing good, but we convince ourselves it's okay. Everybody follow that, right?
Yes.
And then we go into that place that we drift further and further into that chaos or insanity, right? And of course, we're studying about step 2. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, all right? And that means taking us from that place of insanity and bringing us into a sane state of order instead of disorder in our life. And I like what you guys all said here about what prevents us. And I would have just said it's oftentimes it's we ourselves that prevent us through those things that you mentioned. Does that make sense? Even ego. Ego, if we were, well, Bobby, tell us what that means to you, ego. Bobby's back on the piano.
Yeah. That's an attitude of I can fix it. I know what's best for me.
Okay, that would be one form, right?
That was my problem.
That was your problem? And you speak of it as in the past tense, right?
Yes, that was my problem. Yes, sir.
And I can fix those others that are making my situation bad.
And I can fix others. And how about I'm not all that bad?
Yes.
That would have been one of the pride aspects that I would have thought
yeah,
of.
Yeah.
Or I'm good enough, right? Everybody ever carry that one around in their pocket?
I knew I was bad. I knew that.
Okay, all right. So here we are. We're going to be talking about getting restored, and I just want to make sure I plant the thought that it's not the people out there, okay? It's not the people in here. It's not the people anywhere. It's the people that's living inside your head, which is primarily you. You're a self-critic, right? Does that make sense? That prevents us, because we have been given reconciliation, and all we have to do is be willing to accept that. We talked a lot about that last week, and tonight we're talking about coming to that place, recognizing that there's a power greater than ourselves. I have this for later, but I'm going to go ahead and jump in now, and that is Einstein. Anybody familiar with the quote? Einstein said, "You can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it." All right? All right? And what we're talking about here, the same mind that created this insanity, okay, is not capable of creating sanity. All right? So you're going to have a power greater than yourself, or which is greater than ourselves, and or maybe in a sane spot to help us get to that place, to bring us into a place of emotional order instead of emotional disorder. What do you think about that? You like that? Okay, all right. Well, I'll just stop right there and we'll start on the scripture. Oh, no, we're gonna listen to some music, right?
Sure.
I feel like that's the second week in a row you forgot about us.
I remembered quick, didn't I?
You
So, hey, quit arguing with me and come on down.
Gee.
Did. worship Him now. How great, how awesome is He. Together we sing. Everyone sing. Glory is the Lord, God Almighty. The earth is filled with His glory. Glory is the Lord, God Almighty. The earth is filled with His glory. The earth is filled with His glory. We stand in the fire. The joy of the Lord is great. We bow down and worship Him now. How great, how awesome is He. Everyone sing. Everyone sing. Glory is the Lord, God Almighty. The earth is filled with His glory. Glory is the Lord, God Almighty. The earth is filled with His glory. The earth is filled with His glory. All around us, and above, the world renowned and it's rising up. All around us, and above, the world renowned. Together we sing. Everyone sing. Holy is the Lord, God Almighty. The earth is filled with His glory. Holy is the Lord, God Almighty. The earth is filled with His glory. The earth is filled with His glory. Holy is the Lord.
Thank you. Did you guys enjoy this week? Like this week, this fake summer has been amazing.
What'd you call it?
A fake summer,
Yeah,
fake spring,
Indian summer is nice,
Indian summer.
except when it gets rolled back to winter.
Yeah.
Except when it turns to fade.
The splendor of the King, clothed in majesty, let all the earth rejoice, all the earth rejoice.
We need a projector for all y'all to be able to sing along.
Christ unlocked my heart. wouldn't cry. It's alright.
All right. That's good. Thank you, guys.
That's a fun song.
Feeling good, crowd?
Yes. Next up is Garth.
Get it, Darth.
Me and Garth get up there and sing, but got friends in low places. Oh, wrong Garth. Wait a minute.
I'll do it.
I like singing. I'll sing with you sometime.
Okay.
We'll let Mike up to you, Mike
Okay.
Garth, and
How's that?
sound good.
Sounds good. Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Garth. I am an addict, and I'm here to read the 12 steps.
All right.
Number one, we admitted that we were powerless over our problems, that our lives had become unmanageable. Number two, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Number three, we made the decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. Number four, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Number 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. Number 7, we humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings. Number 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. And 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Was there anybody that needed any bracelets tonight?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right. I just gonna have you do it, Tony, but since,
All right. No one needs a bracelet?
Not yet.
All right.
I'm looking forward to it.
Step 2, restoration. How's everybody doing tonight?
Wonderful.
It's good to hear.
well, waiting to find out what restoration means.
All right, let's do this. Step 2, restoration. Bible reading Luke 15:11-24. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. In the natural, you gonna have me stop and stuff?
Oh, yeah, as soon as you read this next sentence.
Okay, alright. In the natural progression of addiction, life degenerates,
What does that mean?
falls apart,
Falls apart.
gets messy.
And I like the word degenerate.
Mm.
Or, did I say it right?
Degenerate, yeah.
Degenerate? Yeah, I don't know, I just like the word, and describe that, because,
What does that mean to you, Garth?
I don't know, it's almost more than just falling apart, it's just kind of like almost going to ash, just like, you know.
I was thinking that, like
Like
how,
Yeah.
Going to dust, right?
how plastic gets old and then it just turns like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah.
degenerate. Go back to its original elements. Or some might say turn to crap. Too much?
too much.
No.
Okay, and was there anything else you wanted to expound on
No.
well, read that.
Let me read it
sentence.
again.
Yeah, read that sentence again.
In the natural progression of addiction,
Oh, wait a minute, what does that mean?
well, like the timeline,
Timeline?
like a timeline, yeah, progression, like things.
So this is a kind of a locked-in, reasonable way that addiction functions. Is that what you're trying to say? Is that a good terminology?
Yeah, I
I
guess
think right here, the natural progression is just like, that's how it is.
how the ball rolls.
That's the way it is.
It's
Cookie
kind of like,
crumbles.
do what?
How the cookie crumbles.
How the cookie crumbles. Because the cookie's going to crumble, and so therefore the system is how it does that, and it does it similar or the same way every time.
Yeah.
So read that sentence again.
In the natural progression of addiction, life degenerates.
Sure does.
So what does that mean?
One thing that I like about that statement is progression of addiction.
It's good.
And in my own experience, it may have started out pretty small, but boy, it progressed to where it was big.
And mine, it didn't stop progressing, you know? It just, like, when I thought it could get any worse, it just seemed like something else happened that would, you know, degenerate me more. Yeah.
Read that statement one more time.
In the natural progression of addiction.
Wait a minute, that's too fast.
Oh, too fast. In the natural progression of addiction, life degenerates.
It sure does.
I forgot your name.
Mitch.
Mitch. I was going to guess Mitch, but I don't like to guess if I'm not sure, because then I always remember the one that I'm wrong. So Mitch, did you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I'll say something about that.
I thought you wanted to.
I kind of did. For me, the more that, you ever heard that term that your addiction's out there doing push-ups?
Say that again.
When you're in recovery, they say that the monkey on your back's right outside the door doing push-ups. And
And what is that? What do you think that means?
it's getting stronger.
It's getting stronger, waiting on you.
The thing is I believe that what they were saying is as your addiction grows, the more, I mean, for me, it's like, the more I did it, the more I had to have, which in turn, you know, made my life and my social interactions with other people decline in such a way where it was unacceptable to live among the rest of society, you know, because you're doing things you shouldn't be doing, you know? And that's in life in general. For me, the way I've looked at it my whole life is that, or my adult life, I should say, actually since I turned 40, I figure that if I'm not growing forward, then I'm either stagnant or going backwards. And that's in life, in addiction, in anything that I've ever done in my life, in the 43 years that I've been here. If I'm doing negative, then I attract negative energy, and that's what I get, is a bunch of negative in everything I do.
It's good.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me share.
Well, you're not done yet.
You just started, buddy.
But you don't have to say anything you don't want to say, of course.
No, I'm cool with it.
But you made me think of something, and you made a reference to our addiction growing. So for something to grow, then it's got to feed on something.
Oh yeah.
So what is it feeding on?
Everything.
Like?
My addiction feeds off of everything. I mean, it feeds off my relationships with other people. It feeds off my physical, materialistic stuff. I mean, it feeds off everything that I am. I mean, it basically destroys me. Multiple times I've destroyed my life over and over and over and over again, thinking that this time I'd have it beat or this time it'd be better. But every time I went back out there, it's always out there waiting for me, and it's always out there stronger than it was before.
And that's because it's been feeding on stuff.
That's because it's been holding me hostage. Taking everything from me.
And when something feeds on something, it's drawing strength from what it's feeding on, right?
Right. And the stronger you are, the more that it grasps.
And so when it's feeding on you, drawing strength from you, then that means it's weakening whatever it's feeding on. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And would that be this terminology that they're talking about?
Yeah.
This deterioration? It's what it's feeding on is destroying or deteriorating whatever it's feeding on,
Yeah.
which is everything according to Mitch.
It is.
which is, I won't disagree with that. It's whatever it can get its tentacles into, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's sucking life. You're nodding real heavily there, Garth. It's sucking life right out of those things that you didn't have any intention of it tapping into, but yet it always does, right?
Right.
And they can be great things. I think, you know, it can be great things, and it'll feed on that for a while, and then when everything is kind of in the pot, then it'll feed on that as well, you know. So
In my experience, in over 25 years of drug addiction, in and out of recovery, in and out of sobriety, it's taken everything from me, every single thing. There's not anything in my life that I can say that I have today that hasn't been either trampled on, stepped on, taken advantage of, or just consumed completely out of my addiction, including my own life. You know, and it'll take your life eventually as jails, institutions, or death. And I can guarantee you right now that if you're the type of person like me that doesn't really break the law other than purchasing things I shouldn't be purchasing, if that's the only thing you do, then you're not going to wind up in a jail or an institution. You're going to wind up dead. And that's I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it again. I don't want to do it to begin with. That's why I'm sitting right here.
All right. Well, we're glad you're here. And you created another thought, if I may. So if we were to liken this addiction to something that grows and feeds on things, then maybe we could liken it to like one of those big, ugly, nasty weeds that grow up. And it just sucks all the life stuff around it, water and everything, right? Isn't that truth? Grass dies because it doesn't get anything. So stuff stops living because it sucks all the life out. Would you say that's a pretty good picture of addiction?
Yes.
and I think the one I lost at the beginning was material things, a roof over my head, and then once I've lost that, then it starts feeding on my mind, my body, and so then you know it just you know I wasn't healthy, I wasn't thinking clearly, and that's when I think
It affects you mentally, emotionally,
absolutely,
physically.
absolutely,
It destroys your body. It destroys you emotionally.
sure.
Your mental health goes right down the crapper,
It sure does.
right? And you become sick in your thinking. So therefore, if you're not able to think in a healthy way, then you're sick. Then your feelings are going to come out of what your thoughts are, and then those feelings produce your behaviors. Sounds like kind of like a sad story, doesn't it, Jimmy? Yeah. So anyway, did you know there was that much in that little bitty statement?
Wow. One sentence, yeah. Really opened up a nice conversation.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mitch. That was very, very good, and Garth. And so, won't you read that one statement again for those that just came in, and so at least they can know what they missed.
Thank you for reading my mind.
You guys ready for this?
Yes.
In the natural progression of addiction, life degenerates.
And it's short, and it's powerful, it's to the point, yeah.
But it's deep
It's deep
and wide.
and wide. Sure, I'll go with you.
Are we gonna start singing a song?
Well, you know, there's a lot of things that'll go wide, but they're real shallow, and then there's things that's deep but not very wide. But I think that statement right there went both directions.
Yeah.
All right,
In-
Mr. Thomas.
In one way or another, many of us wake up one day to realize that we are living like an animal.
I got a big question mark in there. Got a big question mark on that. What do you think about that?
I was thinking about when I lived on the skid row in a box. That's kind of like living like an animal. I mean, I was living on a sidewalk. My addiction led me that far to where I had to have my more than I had priorities on my own life.
Well put.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I just sit here thinking about, so I have 2 dogs, you know, and a pack of dogs or whatever, there's always an alpha. And every morning whenever I feed him, Odin eats first, and if Muppet gets too close, he'll growl and he'll, you know, put him in his place to know, like, hey, this is my turn, you know, and we do that though, like, it correlates like to my anger whenever like I'm not getting my way or whenever things aren't going right. I do that to everybody around me.
So you're saying, what you're saying is then you act like an animal sometimes? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah.
All right, I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying.
I even used animals in my picture there.
I know, it was pretty clear to me, but I just wanted to make sure it was clear all the way around.
Okay.
And so, and do you think that's, why do you think that is? How about that?
Why do I think that I do that?
Why do we in certain cases seem to revert to an animal nature?
So what I believe is that all addiction isn't necessarily the individual substance, but it's addiction to pleasure and the fear of discomfort. And so when we're not feeling pleasure and we're feeling discomfort that we don't like feeling, then the animal side comes out. Our knee-jerk reaction, our fight or flight, or freeze or appease, or whatever, comes out where it's self-protection. And if we're not getting the thing that we believe is making us feel better, then we need to guard ourselves, because some of us, I know for me, drinking was a form of protection in the situation whenever I started drinking heavily.
And explain that.
So I was in a
No, you don't have to tell the story, but explain how drinking was a form of protection.
so that I could mentally check out of the domestic violence.
Okay, all right. So let's go back to this statement here where he's talking about that we can we'll use degenerate. We'll pull degenerate. We degenerate back into acting like or living like an animal. That's the last part of that statement. Is that right, Tommy?
Yes.
And so how is our natural progression of addiction cause us to degenerate back into living like an animal? Or does it? Can it?
Yes, you can. The vision I have is when I'm not on drugs, then I have a comfortable home. I have plenty of food in the cabinet. I eat when I want, have nice meals.
Good friends.
Yes, good friends. But whenever I am doing dope, then I don't have that comfortable home. I don't have the dinner on the table, And so I kind of feel like I'm like a dog, scavenging, like, get away from that. That's mine, because it's all I got, So that's the reason I have.
Well, that's a pretty good picture, which lines up with what Vanessa was saying there about her dogs and her life, and also Tommy talking about living in a box, right? But this point here is that the addiction, whether it's substances or behaviors or obsessive compulsive behaviors, it degenerates us to, would it be right to say, cause us to behave in such a manner that is beneath a human threshold?
Yes.
Would you buy that?
Yes.
And is that, what do you think about that?
It's not what God intended.
No.
He wants, that's why he created us to have dominion over all the animals of the earth.
Right.
So if we allow ourselves to degenerate to that point where we're just like the animals, then
Part of the pack.
we're not pleasing God for
Yeah.
sure.
Now, just remember what our topic is here, because we're talking a lot about that degeneration state, but we're talking about, our overall topic is about restoration, okay? So, you know, sometimes we have to recognize where we're at to be able to do anything about it, right? And then, and maybe even know why we got there, but if you know that you are, then you can at least begin to maybe do something about it. And that's kind of what, am I going too deep, or am I going too far by asking or commenting on the questions that I'm asking, or is this okay? Is this good?
I think it's great.
Okay, all right. So just remember, our target is, we're talking about the information of restoration, okay? All right, go ahead, Tommy.
How true this is depends on the nature of our addiction. Some of us may be living like an animal in terms of our physical surroundings. Others of us may be a slave to our animal passions, powerful emotions that dehumanize us and others.
I got a big question there on that last sentence,
Yes.
last two sentences. And that's what I was talking about, was that dehumanize. So why is it you think that obsessive compulsive behaviors and substances cause us to, or affect us in that dehumanizing way?
So I was sitting here thinking about, is it Pavlov that does the bell and then gives a reward, so he has like the reward punishment?
Yeah, dogs, primarily
with
dogs.
But we can be, I mean, we're trained the same way.
Absolutely.
And so, and we do that to ourselves, you know, like our reward is our substance for enduring the pain. We don't want to feel the pain, but we definitely don't want to feel the pain of change, because at least this pain I know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so I know that if I go through this, I'll get this reward. And that's just that cycle. And so that creates the habit that, and then when after so long, it becomes that obsessive compulsive, or even before, I feel like you were gonna correct me there. I mean, obviously you start having those thoughts leading
Right.
up to, before you start, and like, you can feel the insanity coming on, or at least I could, like, you can definitely feel it, cause when your mind won't shut up,
That's
and
good.
and you feel backed into a corner and stuck, what are your options? Leave, but sometimes that's easier said than done, is in certain situations,
Sure.
you know, or mentally leave,
Yes.
you know.
Pull the blinds on your
Right.
mind and go dark.
Yeah.
And psychology calls that I forgot.
Disassociating.
Disassociating. Yes, thank you.
Very good.
Yeah, and so, but you know, when we first started talking off, you were talking about relieving pain, and that's how it all kind of starts up. It's trying to numb, trying to fix, trying to help us fix a problem, and we try to cope with it, cope with the issue with something, some sort of behavior or substance, and so and it seems to work, and so it helped there for a while until it doesn't. And but the helping part puts it in our brain that this is the only thing that will work. And so we get caught in that trial. That's where the habit comes in, what you're talking about. But we were talking about this degeneration aspect that Mitch was talking about, and that we stay in that cycle, and you just start swirling down into that in hopelessness, not unhappy. It's not past unhappy. It's in hopelessness.
To today would have been that good day to watch that rat park.
Yeah, yeah. He's talking about a video about which I haven't seen because I don't think you sent it to me.
Yeah, you watched it in
Well, I mean, I
I
did watch it with you, didn't I?
Yeah.
But my mind wasn't all there because you showed it to me right after this. So, and I think we had 2 or 3 people standing there too. So, but I read the research on that and what they talked about that. So I'm familiar with it, and that a rat, they did research with rats and mice, and that if they're by themselves, if they don't have a rat buddy, and there's cocaine there,
Oh, I've
cocaine water, they'll hit the cocaine water until they die.
Yeah.
But if they have a rat park, something to do, something to take away their boredom, and or a buddy or friend, then they will leave the cocaine alone. And according to this study, was that the biggest cause of addiction is boredom. Okay, and they backed it up with this research with rats. But also, there's many other research, people coming back from Vietnam when they were hooked on drugs over there, when they came back over here, they were moved into a completely different situation. Not all of them, but a lot of them had no problems. So we degenerate, and that's the reason why we're here. That's the reason why people are watching the video, is that we got stuck and we fall into that hopelessness and we are degenerating. We're going down the toilet of life, getting ready to be flushed into the septic soup of hell, right? And that's that degeneration. And if we're not careful, we get so hopeless we'll just take ourselves out. And that's that. There is a better way than that, and that's what we're here to try to say. There's a better way than that, and there is restoration. And the biggest enemy is those screaming demons in our head, that self-critic, So that's what we're trying to accomplish here. So if Tommy will quit interrupting me, we'll get into it.
I try my best.
Okay, go ahead.
In Luke 15:17-18 and 20, it says, "A young man took an early inheritance and traveled away from home. When the money was spent, the women just a memory, and the high long gone, he resorted to slopping pigs to earn a meager living. When he became so hungry that he eyed the pig's slop with envy, he realized he had a problem."
And that's kind of where we were talking about a while ago, that degeneration. Okay. Now when did his problem start?
Long before the pigs.
Well, long before the pigs, and long before he told his dad, "I wish you were Dad, I want my inheritance," which he didn't use those words, but basically he did. Because you don't get inheritance until your parent's dead, right? And so basically he said, I don't want to wait till you're dead, so I wish you were dead so I could have my money and go. And his dad said, okay. So I'd say there may have been a problem somewhere in that area, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
And so there was a problem, and then your last statement was,
He's so hungry that he eyed the pig's slop with envy.
the last one.
He realized he had a problem.
He realized he had a problem. Go ahead.
When he finally came to his senses, he said to himself, "At home even the hired servants have food enough to spare, and here I'm dying of hunger. I will go home to my father." So he returned home to his father, and while he was still a long way off, his father saw him coming. Filled with love and compassion, he ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him.
This is one of my favorite stories. Of course, I say that probably about almost all of them, right? but this is one of them. And because I remember the day that I understood what this story was, and somehow was able to receive God's love in a way that I hadn't before, even though I'd been a Christian for a long time. Because of some of that I was talking about earlier, self-rejection, which I didn't use that term, but that's what it was. And so he was out there and he finally came to himself. He went from a completely insane state and he started making a shift and he started seeing things, and then he realized, where am I at? What am I doing? It really don't have to be this way. The servants, the people that work for my dad, have plenty to eat. Maybe I can just go back home and get a job. Maybe he'd still like me enough to give me a job. Knowing that he didn't deserve it, knowing he already messed up big time, right? Because that's big time mess up, right?
And I was kind of thinking, he might also be thinking his father's going to, reject him or holler at him or something when he comes back. So.
Sure, good. Except, it's a funny thing, that's not what it said. Maybe, possibly he'd give me a job. So he knew his dad's heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever thought about that? He knew his dad's heart, but he knew he didn't deserve any real big favor, but maybe he'd at least give him a job.
Because his father probably said, son, now's not the time to be spending the inheritance. Maybe you should, son.
He could have very well said that, but based on what we know about what he said, the son, it doesn't matter what anybody else say, right? Just like you guys, all of us, doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, his mind made up.
Yeah.
That's when you start ignoring phone calls.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, he went home, and this is a real interesting statement. And I did some research on this statement. And while he was still a far way off, and I looked up and tried to find out exactly how far away off is. Nobody really stated, except the fact of it is, I always thought, I said, number one, a Jewish dad that's a farmer wasn't going to be hanging around on the front porch waiting for his son to show up. So I think he knew that his son was coming, because I think maybe he had people watching him. Don't interfere, but watching. And so afar off could have meant right after he decided to head back home. Maybe he made that turn, all right, and decided, I'm going to go back to my father's house. So he may have gone to wherever he started his journey back, and walked with him all the way back. And when he got close enough to the house, he called for his servants and said, bring a robe, bring some sandals, bring a ring, which all have significance in those statements, because that moved him from being a servant to being an heir. And so he didn't even get to say anything when his father approached him. But before he was finished, his dad hugged him and kissed him. And I, that is a picture of God loving and kissing us. Now, one thing you need to remember, he violated a Jewish law by touching his son, because I imagine he still had pig poop all over him, right? Because that was a violation dealing with pigs. But relationship was more invaluable to him than religion.
Well, he restored his inheritance too, even though he had already squandered his first portion.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it seemed like Dad, instead of teaching him a lesson, let him learn the lesson, and by going, and then knew when he came back that he would be wiser.
Well, he probably had taught him, but he come to the place that the only way was for him to learn, like maybe somebody in this room. Me, maybe. So, we either learn by other people's experience or getting our own, right?
Well, hey, I knew drugs are bad, yet I did them. So, it's kind of like me getting my inheritance early.
Right. So he went in this situation, but rest of the story. One of my titles that I put up on the video was, "How does the prodigal son how does the prodigal son and the story of Cain and Abel correlate?" Any thoughts?
He doesn't understand the question.
Oh, thanks.
Well,
That's why
I don't answer. I don't answer a question nobody asks.
That's.
I don't answer a question that nobody asks.
Well, Cain never turned back either. And I don't think that Cain's heart was ever fully in love with God, rather than the idea of what God could do for him.
That could be very well true.
I mean, that's just my understanding of it, and it's hard to correlate the two because Abel gets killed, where in the prodigal son, the other brother who stayed doesn't get killed. Like, neither one of them die, but maybe just the heart of the matter, Cain's heart versus this man's heart. This man had the opportunity, but God also knows our hearts, so he probably knew that the son would come back, versus, once Cain had killed Abel, God probably knew that his heart wasn't ever gonna be repentant. Maybe. That's
Well, there's a lot of things we don't know.
right.
There's way more that we don't know than what we do know.
Exactly.
And but we didn't even get all the way through the prodigal son story. And so maybe it was unfair for me to reveal my title. The rest of the story is that the dad got him home, said, "Kill the fatted calf. Let's celebrate. My son was dead, but now he's alive. He's back with us. Let's rejoice. Let's have a party. Let's celebrate." Well, when the older son came home and heard dancing and partying going on, he asked one of the other servants, "What's going on?" He says, "Your brother is back, and your dad has killed the fatted calf, and he's celebrating that he's back." And that made him mad. And he wouldn't go in. Now, he made it known that he wasn't going in because his dad found out that he was outside and not coming in, and he went out, talked to him. And he said, "I've served you all these years, and I've done everything you said, and not one time you ever gave me a party for my friends or killed a calf and had a feast. But your son comes back after you give him all this money, and you throw a party for him." And he says, yes, he did all these things, but he's back. He's alive. He's with us. That means it's time to celebrate. He said, you could all I have is yours now. That's a pretty particular, that story kind of lines up with a lot the way a lot of people think, particularly Christians, because they're maybe self-righteous in their way of thinking, and so the correlation of this story that refers to Cain and Abel in my opinion, actually I come up with the question, so my opinion counts here, right? And so that it has to do with the older brother and his unforgiving and bad attitude, which correlates with Cain and his bad attitude about his brother, because his brother did it right and he did it wrong. And he says it's not fair, okay? You know, my rationale is it should be okay, but God says it wasn't. So he says, hey brother, won't you go with me according to the scriptures? Won't we go out in the field and work? He invites him to go out with him in the field. Cain does. And while he has him out in the field, he kills him.
Oh.
And so, and it's because he was angry and unforgiving. Has anger or unforgiveness ever pushed us around? Stupid anger? Stupid unforgiveness? Now, Cain killed his brother. His brother did it right. And I think Cain, that's what he wanted to do, is do it right. But when you have that type of attitude, you probably know somebody that's this way, that it makes you mad that they're doing it right and you didn't do it right. You know somebody that way? Anybody? But
But if you read the scriptures, it doesn't, at face value, it's really hard to understand what Cain did wrong.
yeah, because there's not very much there.
Right, and even in the prodigal son, it's hard to understand what the son who stayed did wrong.
Right.
But it was their response to what had happened that was what was wrong. Because
Right.
it wasn't until after God blessed Abel that, he recognized Cain's heart was getting hard, and so, there was the jealousy and the envy and wrath coming up and just all those things, but in and of itself, they weren't wrong in, Cain wasn't necessarily wrong in his offering, because God didn't lay out, the details yet, right? Unless I misread that part, but.
Well, he was aware of what he needed to do, because he knew it required a blood sacrifice.
Oh, see, I missed that.
Well, that's where it all started,
Okay.
was the blood sacrifice. And so that information is not necessarily laid out in the scriptures, but the patterns are there. And yeah, maybe he missed that. But see, the issue is, a while ago when I said we talked about the problem, he recognized he had a problem, and we backed it up to where we don't know where the problem started. We're talking about the prodigal son.
Right.
It started long before he got his inheritance. So Cain's problem was before this incident, okay? And isn't our problems there to help us to work out our stuff? One of the things that I really liked earlier in my life was this statement, and I don't know who said it, but it was the little dictators and tyrants in my life are my best teachers. Want me to say that again?
Yes.
The little dictators and tyrants in my life are my best teachers, and because they're able to poke on things that I have hanging out that need to be addressed in my own life. Because people that poke at you, they poke enough until they find the soft spots, right?
Yep.
And so So just because he made a mistake and that wasn't accepted, doesn't mean that it was forever. But with his attitude, he decided maybe I can reshuffle the deck and get rid. Maybe he thought this, or maybe he didn't even think. Maybe he was in such an insane state. I'll just kill my brother.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the prodigal son's brother just got so mad that I'll just stay outside and throw a temper tantrum. And so, because hey, I've always been right, and he's always been a screw up, and he gets a party. Well, that sounds like that's kind of unfair. But the fact of it is, he's back. He's here. He's alive. Isn't that worth celebrating? Well, I can't celebrate that because I'm mad. Does that sound like real life? So that's what we're talking about. Some of that degeneration, okay? And relationship, and you can't have relationship without forgiveness.
I agree.
All right, and so a core erosion in our life is not having that forgiveness, and that unforgiveness happened before his brother left, and maybe his older brother and what was going on there, we don't know, but hey, we know people and we know patterns, right? Maybe it was well, maybe I'll just get away from my brother and get my inheritance and go, and I'll be all right. The only trouble is, he was still pretty immature.
Older siblings are hard to live with. Just saying.
Well, I don't know. I'm the oldest,
I'm the baby.
and I had to raise them. So,
Yes.
and so go Tommy. Stop
Okay.
interrupting.
The fact that we are able to recognize our life as degenerate or insane proves that there is hope for a better way of life. We are reminded of times when life was good and we long to have that goodness restored. When we turn to God, who is powerful enough to help us build something better, we will discover that His power can restore us to sanity.
That's good.
I believe it.
Yes, I believe it.
Because as a part of my life, restoring me back to sanity. I enjoy being able to think clearly, more clearly today than I did in my addiction.
So, some of the statement with Einstein's statement about you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it is to solve a problem, you first have to see it with clarity.
Makes sense.
And when you're in that insane state, there is no clarity, right?
No.
And when you are able to have this clarity, how does that affect your life, Tommy?
Makes it more peaceful and have better priorities.
Better priorities.
Yeah.
So what? You just got better priorities. What does that mean?
I live better. I make better choices.
Oh, so then you make better choices.
Yes.
You have better priorities and you make
Yes.
better choices.
Yes.
So you take action on those priorities
Yes.
because they're better.
And I learn from my mistakes when I have mistakes because it's easier not to just run to the addiction when I have a problem.
Yeah.
But there's a time when we do run to the addiction,
Yes, there is a time. Yeah.
and that's insanity.
Yes.
Would you say that again, please?
There is a time when we choose to run to the addiction, even though we may know in our mind and our heart that it's not the right thing to do, but yet we choose to do that. And that is what brings on the insanity.
Well, I think we're in an insane state when we make that choice.
Yeah.
But it creates more insanity. I go with that.
how can we stop the insanity
That's a great question.
without stopping that behavior?
And so what's the answer?
Get some help.
Right? That's good, that's good. But your statement was, how can we stop the insanity and without stopping the behavior, right? So,
Admit we are powerless over our problems in our lives.
unmanageable, right? And so what we need to do is step two, we came to believe that there's a power that's greater than ourselves that can restore us to that same place. And knowing that and believing that and holding to that, even if we're not in that, but having that target, that goal, that means we got a place we're going towards. And if you don't have that place to go towards, that goal, what Scripture says, without a vision, my people perish. In other words, if you don't have that goal, if you don't have that target, if you don't have that direction, then you will be destroyed. Now, you may not be able to, it may take you a while to hit it, but it's way better than not having it, right? And getting some help along the way. And you work on it, and you work on it, and you work on it, and the bottom line is we have to convince ourselves, right? We have to sell it to ourselves. We have to be willing to buy it. Yes, I know it's the truth. Yes, it's in my best interest. Yes, that's what I want to do, but and we have to eliminate the but, right?
And one thing that
And there's only one person who can do that, right? Because it's your butt, right?
is my butt.
I have to say.
You know, and one thing that became quite apparent to me when I started using and being around others that did is there's a lot of people that don't have that lack hope. And I don't know if they had hope before the drugs and then they lost it, or if they just never had hope, you know. But I tell you, I think that is just, it's sad and it's just so important to have, you know, hope.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because you know, if you don't have hope, why set a goal? Because it's never gonna happen. Is what my thing.
Absolutely. Very
So, the first question is, how have my compulsions and addictions led me to compromise my values, convictions, and principles? Well, the first thing is, like, I had to admit, like, I had way more addictions than just alcohol or substances, you know. I think the core of it was possibly codependency, or like extreme enmeshment in relationships where like I had no identity. Cool thing in therapy, has anybody ever done like a value sorting cards where like you identify what your core values are? Okay, I'm gonna take that as a no. After about 7 years into therapy, we got to that part. And so my core values were self-awareness, spirituality, genuinely or being genuine, and growth. And so how has my compulsions and addictions led me to compromise my values? Well, whenever I'm hiding, you know, almost everybody I've been with has been an addict, you know, even before like I started drinking and or other things like, so I would keep their secrets, you know, and then I was the enabler and that codependent person who would enable their addiction. So now it's my secrets. Yeah, so I'm no longer being genuine or honest, you know. I wasn't being self-aware because I really thought I was doing it out of love. You know, I thought I was being unconditionally or unconditional love, you know, so I wasn't self-aware of what was going on, which then the growth and the spirituality plummets as well, because now I'm living in a lie and deception, and I'm deceiving myself and lying to myself. So that's where it starts in a lot of the relationships, and then it's not too long that I start following suit, and start using. Um, so so that goes along with my convictions too. I hate lying. I am a horrible liar. You can ask a lot of my family members, like it's written all over my face, all over my body language, everything whenever I am lying. And so imagine how, I mean, you probably could, because imagine how uncomfortable it is living a lie and not being good at lying, because, I mean, you're just a hot mess. You don't know how to act.
Are you high? No, no, no.
Right, right. And my principles, which I don't know how those really differ from the other two, but I mean, I have principles and opinions that, like, I want to live in a substance-free home. That's a principle. I wanted my children to grow up not experiencing the same stuff with addiction that I experienced growing up with other family members. I was fortunate my parents weren't addicts, but other family members were, and so I was still very much around it. And so I don't know if I answered that fully, but so that goes into question number 2. How have my compulsions and addictions dehumanized me and brought me shame? When you're really bad at lying, and one of your values and convictions is to be an honest person and be genuine, and you're not living that, like, your identity is gone. You're not being self-aware, you're not being true to who God created you to be, and you are reminded of it every second of every day, whenever you're feeling that shame.
And I want to say here, I written down, and shame, my definition of shame is because guilt is when that you've done something bad. Shame is that you think that I am bad.
You hate yourself.
You hate yourself because I am bad. Not that I did something wrong, that I am wrong. There's something wrong with me. And so I am bad, I am worthless, I am no good, I deserve whatever I get type of mentality. And that is that shameful mentality. Now, some people say, well, there's a good part to shame. Well, I used to disagree with them, but there's it depends on how you verbalize it, that you have enough I would call it personal integrity to live your life, that when you get off that, you have enough twinge that you know that you need to get back on that. But I wanted to comment on your value there. You traded values, your core personal values of integrity to the value. You got more. You possibly felt like you got more out of taking on the value of keeping secrets than keeping your integrity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was the loyalty at all cost, and I did.
So it was a twisted
Mm-hmm.
mindset there, which happens to a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
That, in other words, there was some good in it, but it caused you to make unhealthy choices.
Mm-hmm.
But it's loyalty. I remember when I was a high school student, when they had the My Lai massacre in Vietnam. Probably some of you remember that. And the deal was, well, we were following orders. Well, they went to prison even though they were following orders, because the idea is you know what's right and what's wrong, even if you have been given an order. Well, we're trying to follow orders. Well, there are some orders that contradict what is right. And so you have to do that, and which was a real big lesson for, I think, the country at that time. And but it also had a big negative effect. Why?
It seems like that lesson should have been already learned in the Second World War with the Holocaust.
Should have been,
Yeah.
but you know what? We have these. We have the mindset that she's talking about of loyalty at all costs. You know, and it's and because of the system of the military, they have to have that chain of command, but there's exceptions to almost every rule.
Right.
And even the story we talked about where the father went and kissed his son with pig poop on him, okay, he violated the rule, but you know, he loved him and he accepted it, and he just like Jesus did when he was walking, and that's what God has done when he went searching for Adam and Eve in the garden when they ran and hid, and he was calling to them, you know, and trying to get them to come to him, and you know, and that's what God does for us. His grace reaches around corners. Okay? Has His grace reached around any corners for you?
Absolutely.
For all of us. Go ahead.
In light of how my addictions and dependencies have degraded me, am I open to a deeper level of believing that the power and forgiveness of God will restore me to sanity? It's only been within the last few years, because I had said before that this step used to really piss me off, because like if there's a higher power greater than myself who can restore me back to sanity, and I feel like I had never been sane, what could He restore me back to? You know, and that was my question. So I felt whenever I first did this stuff, I'm like, man, I'm hopeless, because like you could ask my family, like I am crazy. I was the crazy one. And anyway, so ask it how I got to where I could work this step is, okay, if I'm insane, and I know what the definition of insane is, because you can't look up the definition of sanity and get anything. It says the act of being sane. Oh, wish I would have thought of that, you know, like, so it doesn't really tell you what sanity is. And so if insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, then sanity must mean to do something different.
Well, it's not just doing it over and over again and
expecting different results.
There you go.
And so sanity must be do something different. And so in those areas where God was gracious enough to show me, hey, this is a character flaw of yours, okay, what would be the opposite of this? Because I had to go with what's the opposite of this, not just something different, because I've had those patterns too. It's like, okay, well, this is different. And I go from like blue to teal, you know, like that much difference. But no, I had to go from blue to orange. You know, you get what I'm saying? Like, it had to be the complete opposite. So like, instead of me punching you because you make me mad, maybe I should walk away. Because that's the complete opposite versus instead of me punching you, I'm going to kick you, you know? So it had to be that. And so that's how I got around to being able to work this step, is just, I had to figure out what sanity meant, because I knew what insanity was, you know, and then I think it was you, Doug, that said, well, there was a design for who you are that wasn't always insane.
Right.
And so I had to come to believe that, okay, whatever sanity was there in the womb, you know, before mom gave birth to me, then that's what I'm being restored back to while my brain was being developed, you know, or even before the age of 5. Those times I don't remember, because I can remember back to that age, and But anyway, so there's got to be a design for me somewhere that wasn't flawed.
Absolutely.
And so if he's got to go all the way back before I was the twinkle in my dad's eye to restore me back to that, then
But I remember when you were struggling with that, and you probably still are to some degree. But there's a part of you that you feel it when you cross it, when you cross that sanity, controlled, regulated, emotionally regulated, peaceful place. You recognize it. You may be hard to stay there because it's so unfamiliar to us. But that's the goal, right? And we have to visit it often and take pieces of it back with us to help us to come to that place where we're able to put ourselves in that place, knowing that God can restore us back to that sane place.
I will say that in the last 4 years, I have felt and have had longer stints of that sanity than ever in my life. And probably because my brain didn't fully develop until I was 34, because I'm 38 now. And so, so now having tasted and seen what it is where I hadn't before, in those moments that I am dysregulating, I am quicker to squash it, and I don't stay there as long if I do get out of control. Not where in the past where it's like, oh, I'm sane right now for like last 4 hours, you know? It's months. It's months, I would say. So
Congratulations.
thank you.
And one thing, I think this is relevant, that is, at the, in group, you know, I had heard, at the, what was I saying? I had heard about, some folks were saying that, you know, oh, I don't like change, you know, I just don't like change. And my thought is, if I don't change, I'm gonna stay in it. So change is necessary in order to move out of that.
Well, and people don't like change,
Right.
because we like to be comfortable in our mess, but because staying the same is painful and change is painful, but the pain of change is temporary, where the pain of staying the same, that's not gonna end unless you do something different, right? So,
Well, I say it's growth.
yeah.
And for me, I remember thinking, and it was an interesting moment, you know, I remember thinking like, you know, okay, so I gotta stop, I just have to stop. And I started feeling scared about stopping. And I was like, why do I feel this fear of stopping? Like, never, ever, you know?
Good.
And then I thought, but you know something, the fear that I experienced when I was on it, people chasing me or not having a roof over my head, that fear was way more than the fear I was having to stop it. And so, you know, I thought, well, hey, you know, it just seems to make sense.
And do you know what that fear was that you were having?
Fear?
The fear that you were having?
Yes, fear. What was it? It was.
Are you asking me a question?
Yes, I would say, I'm trying to, let's see. I don't know, growth is a word that comes to mind, but I don't know.
Well, this may not be so, but it's what I think is the fear of the unknown. You don't know where you're going when you start to grow. So it's scary, but it's good.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But it's scary, because we don't know. We know where all the degeneration, we got a pretty good idea where that's gonna take us, like Mitch was saying, you know, institution, death, you know, destruction. Not that we really want that, but, you know, we're aware of, intuitively we're aware of it.
It almost seemed like, I mean, it almost gives the impression we do want it, because it's so obvious that it's taking us there, and yet we continue to do it. One might, you know, from afar think you want it.
Well, there's a part of our brain that wants it believes that that's how you survive. It believes that that's how you survive, and it wants to keep things the same. And so but it's just a part of your brain that's trying to drive the car here, right? And sometimes we let it. And then, but somewhere along the line, we have to come up and say, wait a minute, you're not driving anymore. You can ride maybe in the trunk. Anything else? Dakota, did you have anything you want to say? You was real quiet today.
Yeah.
Jimmy, you have anything you'd like to say?
Just that I really like this meeting. I got a lot out of it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. John, you didn't say much tonight. You have anything? No. All right.
I didn't say much either, did I?
You never do.
I never do.
Well, it's what we want is to try to help you, and I'm a believer in trying to help you to think, okay? And I want you to think. Not that I'm right in what I say, but I want to help you to think. And if you think, and if you ask God to help you, I believe that He will lead you and guide you in that. So may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may His face look upon you, smile upon you, and give you His peace.
Thank you.
All right? And make healthy choices.